My boyfriend scoffed. "Please, you'd never survive without me." I replied, "Is that so?" Then I took the promotion on the West Coast, secured temporary housing, and arranged mail forwarding. When he showed up at my old condo with a speech prepared, the new tenant opened the door instead. I, 37-year-old Sophia Reynolds, have always considered myself a capable woman. As marketing director for a Fortune 500 technology firm, I manage multi-million-dollar campaigns that require strategic thinking and flawless execution. I have an MBA from Northwestern, a healthy 401k that I've been building for over a decade, and can absolutely navigate my own life decisions. Yet, for the past 4 years, I've existed in a state of carefully orchestrated dependence. A role methodically crafted for me by Ryan Mitchell, 39. Our relationship began with what felt like mentorship wrapped in romance. Ryan works in enterprise sales for the same industry, targeting C-suite executives with solutions that cost more than most people's annual salaries. His world revolves around influence, perception, and closing deals that require months of relationship building. When he started staying over at my downtown condo 3 years ago, he brought that professional toolkit into our personal space. My life became his latest project to optimize. It started with small, seemingly thoughtful gestures. He'd review my presentation slides before important meetings, suggesting strategic improvements that somehow made my voice sound more like his corporate speak. He reorganized my workspace, claiming my color-coded filing system was inefficient for someone at my level and replacing it with his numerical hierarchy. He began managing our social calendar, gradually replacing my weekly yoga classes and weekend photography meetups with networking events that served his career advancement more than mine. Every intervention was framed as professional development. He wasn't being controlling, he was helping me reach my potential in an industry where women often struggle for recognition. He wasn't isolating me, he was curating connections that would matter for our shared future. When I mentioned missing my photography group, he'd remind me that those hours could be better spent on industry certifications that would fast-track my career. And I, a woman who had always valued harmony in my personal life over confrontation, allowed it to happen. It seemed easier to let him optimize my Instagram posts for personal branding consistency or choose my outfit for the company holiday party than to endure the exhausting circular discussions about my missed opportunities for professional growth. I was the classic frog in gradually heating water, slowly being cooked in a broth of condescending care disguised as career coaching. The temperature rose so imperceptibly that I convinced myself the warmth was support, that his constant adjustments were evidence of how much he cared about my success. My one sanctuary remained my photography studio, a converted spare bedroom where I pursued macro photography of architectural details around the city. I spent hours capturing the intricate ironwork of historic buildings, the geometric patterns in modern glass facades, the way shadows played across concrete surfaces. These images required patience and artistic vision, an eye for composition that had earned me several local photography awards and a growing online following. My Instagram account, before Ryan's optimization, had showcased these architectural studies alongside personal moments. Ryan called it my hobby corner and referred to my award-winning prints as pretty pictures for the walls that might impress visitors. He didn't see the skill involved in macro photography, the technical precision required to capture structural details, or the artistic merit that judges had recognized. He saw a time-wasting activity that detracted from the power couple image he was cultivating for us. When potential clients or colleagues visited, he'd guide them past my gallery wall quickly, redirecting conversations toward his sales achievements or our shared professional networking strategies. The breaking point arrived 2 months ago on a Tuesday that started like any other. My director, Janet Caldwell, called me into her corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's financial district. She offered me the opportunity of a lifetime, regional marketing director for our West Coast expansion, overseeing the launch of our new Seattle headquarters. It was a substantial promotion with a $25,000 salary increase, bringing my total compensation to $110,000, plus equity options and the kind of strategic leadership role I had worked toward for years. The position would put me in charge of a team of 12 marketing professionals and a seven-figure budget for the Pacific Northwest market. I was euphoric for exactly 45 minutes. The time it took me to drive home through downtown traffic, my mind racing with possibilities, imagining myself leading strategy meetings in a glass conference room with mountain views. I couldn't wait to share the news with Ryan, certain he'd understand what this meant for my career trajectory. I expected celebration, champagne, maybe dinner at that expensive steakhouse he loved for marking career milestones. Instead, I received a furrowed brow of logistical irritation. "West Coast," he said, not looking up from his laptop where he was reviewing quarterly sales projections. "For how long? This is going to be complicated. I'll need to find new territory out there, and the cost of living adjustment is going to be expensive. We'll have to figure out which furniture is worth shipping and what to put in storage." The assumption was immediate and absolute. There was no question or discussion about whether this was something we both wanted. He immediately began strategizing our relocation, pulling up real estate websites, and discussing which Seattle neighborhoods would be best for his sales territory, what kind of networking opportunities existed in the Pacific Northwest tech scene, and how this could actually benefit his career trajectory by giving him access to Amazon and Microsoft executives. My promotion had become merely the catalyst for his next professional chapter, the foundation for his expansion into new markets. "I was thinking," I started carefully, choosing my words like I was navigating a minefield, "that maybe I should go alone for the first few months. Get settled into the role, establish myself with the new team, figure out the company culture there before we make any big decisions." He finally looked up from his laptop, his expression a perfect mask of amused disbelief. His eyebrows rose slightly, and he tilted his head as if I had just suggested something utterly absurd, like moving to Mars or becoming a professional circus performer. He let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound of pure dismissal that made my stomach clench. "Go alone?" he scoffed, his voice heavy with pity and condescension. "Please, Sophia, you'd never survive without me. You'd be ordering takeout every night and completely lost in client meetings within a week. Don't be ridiculous." And there it was. The water hit a rolling boil. 4 years of my accomplishments, my professional competence, my entire adult independence erased by that single cutting assessment. He didn't see a partner. He saw a project he managed, a client he had successfully developed, a well-performing asset in his portfolio of influence that required constant supervision to maintain optimal performance. A strange calm washed over me, the kind of crystalline clarity that comes in moments of absolute revelation. Years of swallowed objections and suppressed instincts crystallized into a single, cold point of understanding. I looked at this man who believed he had improved me, who saw my success as evidence of his guidance rather than my own capabilities, and made a decision that would reshape everything. "Is that so?" I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm building inside me. He didn't notice the shift in my tone, the way my posture straightened, or how my hands stopped fidgeting with my phone. "Of course it is, babe. Now let's start researching Seattle neighborhoods. I'm thinking Capitol Hill might work for both our networking needs." I didn't argue. I simply nodded, letting him believe he had settled the matter, that his assessment of my incompetence was accepted fact and his presence in my new life was inevitable. I watched him pull up real estate websites, already planning our shared future in a city where I was meant to prove my independence. The next morning, I walked into Janet's corner office at precisely 8 a.m. and formally accepted the promotion. The position started in 45 days, giving me exactly 6 weeks and 3 days to execute what would become the most complex project management challenge of my career, the complete and silent extraction of my life from Ryan's sphere of influence. I operated in 2 parallel realities from that moment forward. In one, I was the accommodating girlfriend listening to his relocation plans, nodding as he researched Seattle sales territories and networking events. In the other, I was a woman executing a precise independence strategy with the same methodical attention to detail I brought to million-dollar marketing campaigns. Phase 1 required establishing my new life foundation. I contacted our corporate relocation services, explaining to the specialist that my domestic partnership was ending and the transition needed to be handled with complete discretion. They were thoroughly professional, asking no unnecessary questions. Within 48 hours, they had secured a furnished corporate apartment overlooking Puget Sound for my first 3 months, with all communication routing exclusively to my work email address. The apartment featured floor-to-ceiling windows, a dedicated workspace, and building amenities that included a fitness center and rooftop garden where I could set up my photography equipment. Phase 2 involved dismantling my old life structure. I gave my condo management company formal notice, submitting the required paperwork in person to ensure there would be no electronic trail Ryan might accidentally discover. The lease, exclusively in my name since I had purchased the unit before we met, would terminate on September 15th. My flight was scheduled for the evening of September 14th. I arranged through a property management service for a new tenant to move in on September 16th. The property would no longer be mine after my departure, eliminating any possibility of Ryan maintaining access or attempting to establish residency rights. Phase 3 demanded surgical precision in handling our possessions. I hired corporate recommended movers with explicit, detailed instructions that I put in writing, all of my personal belongings, clothes, books, photography equipment, my framed architectural prints, kitchen items I had accumulated over years of independent living, were to be professionally packed for cross-country shipping with full insurance coverage. All of Ryan's belongings, from his extensive collection of sales awards to his expensive suits to his technological gadgets, would be carefully inventoried and moved to a climate-controlled storage facility in his name. I prepaid 3 months in advance, ensuring he would have ample time to make alternative arrangements without facing any immediate financial pressure. To Ryan, I explained that relocation specialists were conducting a comprehensive assessment for our move, that this was standard corporate procedure for executive transfers. His arrogance provided perfect camouflage. He was so absorbed in planning his West Coast networking strategy, researching Seattle's tech industry landscape, and imagining his expanded sales territory that he never questioned the logistics or asked to see any documentation. Phase 4 required digital separation with the precision of a military operation. I filed mail forwarding paperwork with the Postal Service, ensuring all correspondence would reach me in Seattle. I purchased a new phone with a Seattle area code to be activated the moment my plane touched down. I opened a new bank account with a local Seattle branch, gradually transferring my direct deposit and automatic payments. I researched photography collectives in Seattle, already imagining myself connecting with other artists who would appreciate the technical skill and artistic vision I brought to architectural macro work. The final weeks felt increasingly surreal, like living in a carefully constructed theater production where only I knew the true plot. I would arrive home from work to find Ryan excitedly showing me LinkedIn profiles of Seattle sales directors he wanted to connect with, while I had spent my lunch break confirming shipping insurance and coordinating with corporate housing services. He would discuss his strategies for breaking into the Pacific Northwest market while I finalized my mail forwarding and researched the best photography supply stores in Seattle. The most therapeutic part of this entire process was packing my photography equipment myself. I spent several evenings after Ryan fell asleep, carefully creating custom foam inserts for each lens, wrapping every piece of equipment with the same attention to detail I brought to composing my architectural shots. I packed my favorite prints personally, the images that had won local awards and gained recognition in photography forums. Cityscapes at golden hour, close-ups of Art Deco building details, abstract compositions of modern glass and steel that Ryan had never understood or appreciated. One evening, Ryan wandered into my studio space while I was wrapping my macro lens collection. "Still playing with your camera stuff, Soph? I need help researching the Seattle startup scene for networking opportunities." Just securing my photography gear for the move, I replied neutrally, my hands steady as I wrapped my favorite cityscape print, a sunrise shot of downtown's financial district that had earned me recognition in a regional photography competition. September 14th arrived like the culmination of the most complex campaign I had ever managed. The movers had completed their work with military precision. My belongings were secure in shipping containers crossing the country toward my new life. His possessions were safely stored in a temperature-controlled facility with his name on all documentation. The condo was empty, reset to its original state like a gallery space between exhibitions. Ryan was at a farewell happy hour with his sales team, regaling them with stories about our upcoming West Coast adventure and how he planned to dominate the Seattle market. He had scheduled this celebration specifically for today, planning to meet me at the condo at 6:00 p.m. so we could head to the airport together for what he called our big adventure into the future. At 4:00 p.m., I stood alone in the empty space that had been my home for 8 years. The afternoon light streamed through windows that no longer framed my furniture, creating geometric patterns on the hardwood floors I had chosen myself. I photographed the storage facility key and access information with my new phone, documents I had left with the facility's front office under Ryan's name, along with clear instructions for transferring full access rights to him. I attached the image to a text message along with the facility's address and his unit number. Your belongings are secure at this location. All access information is with the front office under your name. I pressed send, then walked to my car for the last time as a resident of this city. At the airport, I dropped my old phone in an electronics recycling bin, watching it disappear into a slot marked for proper disposal. That device contained 4 years of messages, photos of us together, location data from all the places he had guided me toward or away from. Letting it go felt like shedding an old skin. I settled into my window seat, activated my new phone, and watched the city lights fade beneath me as the aircraft lifted toward the horizon. I didn't feel anger or sadness. I felt the quiet, powerful sensation of an aircraft gaining altitude, the physical manifestation of liberation that comes from leaving gravity behind. My first week in Seattle was a revelation wrapped in adjustment challenges that I had anticipated but still found overwhelming. The corporate apartment was everything the relocation services had promised. Modern, efficiently furnished, with spectacular views of Elliott Bay from floor-to-ceiling windows. But the silence was the most striking feature. No one commenting on my morning routine, questioning my clothing choices, or suggesting optimizations for how I organized my workspace. The work itself demanded every ounce of my professional experience. Leading a team of 12 marketing professionals across different specialties required diplomatic skills I had developed over years of managing client relationships. The 7-figure budget came with scrutiny from executives who wanted detailed justification for every allocation, but the autonomy was intoxicating. My strategies were implemented without filtering through Ryan's suggestions about how to better position myself within corporate hierarchies. For the first few mornings, I woke with phantom anxiety, a lingering expectation that Ryan would somehow appear and start reorganizing my routine for optimal productivity. I would catch myself looking toward the door, anticipating his commentary on my breakfast choices or suggestions for improving my commute timing. I didn't have to wonder long about his reaction to discovering the truth. After 2 days of my phone number being disconnected, my old backup email account became a battlefield of increasingly frantic messages. Reading through the flood of communications was like reconstructing the timeline of a controlled demolition, watching his carefully constructed reality crumble in real time. He must have finished his farewell happy hour around 5:30, tried calling my disconnected number multiple times, then seen my text about the storage facility. Confused, but probably assuming it was some kind of logistical preparation, he would have driven to the condo at exactly 6 p.m., ready to escort his dependent girlfriend on their joint adventure toward his expanded career opportunities. Instead, a completely bewildered new tenant opened the door. I can envision him pushing past the confused renter, demanding explanations about what was happening in our home. the slow dawning horror as the man explained he had signed a lease 6 weeks ago and moved his furniture in that afternoon. The carefully curated world Ryan had constructed, where my success served as a backdrop for his networking strategies, crumbling on a stranger's doorstep. His first email was pure, sputtering rage, demanding to know where I was and what I had done with his belongings, accusing me of theft and abandonment. The messages that followed over the next 72 hours alternated between threats of legal action, attempts at emotional manipulation, and accusations that I was experiencing some kind of mental breakdown that required immediate intervention. Then came emails from his proxy army. His best friend Jeremy played the role of reasonable mediator, suggesting that I was obviously overwhelmed by the promotion and had made irrational decisions that hurt everyone involved. His sister attempted guilt tactics, writing lengthy messages about how this cruel behavior wasn't consistent with the woman they thought they knew, how Ryan was devastated and unable to understand what he had done wrong. But the most predictable escalation, the manipulation tactic I had specifically anticipated, came through my new office. 3 days after I started my position, my director Janet called me into a meeting with a concerned expression that immediately put me on alert. "Sophia," she said, gesturing toward the chair across from her desk, "we received a rather disturbing call at your former office yesterday. A man identifying himself as your fiancé called claiming there was a family emergency, a medical crisis with your father. He was extremely agitated, demanding your new contact information and threatening to involve law enforcement if we didn't provide immediate assistance." My blood chilled, but not from surprise. My father was in excellent health, having just completed his annual physical with perfect results. This was exactly the kind of escalation I had warned corporate security about when I requested discreet relocation handling. "Fortunately," Janet continued, her voice carrying the professional tone of someone accustomed to handling sensitive executive matters, "our HR department followed the protocols we discussed. Given your confidential relocation status, they flagged the call as suspicious and refused to provide any information. They told him that in a genuine emergency, they would contact me directly to relay the message." He hung up immediately. I explained the situation completely, the controlling relationship, the dismissive assessment of my capabilities, my decision to make a clean break for both professional and personal reasons. Janet was professional and supportive, but the incident reinforced how far Ryan would go to maintain control, even across state lines. She assured me that corporate security would flag any future contact attempts and that our legal department was available if harassment escalated. A few days later, my new work number rang from an unknown area code that I recognized as Chicago. I knew I had to address this directly rather than let it fester into more elaborate manipulation attempts. "Sophia, it's Jeremy." His voice carried barely controlled anger beneath a veneer of reasonableness. "You need to fix this situation immediately. Ryan is completely destroyed. His life is in chaos because of you." I took a measured breath, setting down my coffee cup and looking out at the Seattle skyline through my office windows. "Hello, Jeremy. There's nothing to fix. Ryan's life is his responsibility. I was a guest in my own relationship, and I decided to reclaim my independence." "A guest? He invested 4 years in you, and you can't just abandon someone like this. It's emotional abuse." "What did he invest, Jeremy?" I interrupted calmly. "I kept my job, my condo, my income. What he lost was access to controlling my decisions. Let's be honest about what this is really about. You're being manipulative and cruel." "Is it manipulative to accept a promotion?" I asked, my voice steady. "Is it cruel to leave a relationship where I was told I was incompetent? Ryan made his opinion of my capabilities clear. I simply chose to act accordingly." The silence stretched between us before I continued. "And Jeremy, please tell Ryan that my employer has documented his fraudulent emergency call. Any further attempts to contact me through false pretenses will be referred to our legal department as harassment." The silence was profound. He clearly hadn't known about that particular gambit or its documentation. "This isn't over, Sophia," he finally said, his mediator facade cracking. "For me, it is," I replied. "I'm building a life here that I'm perfectly capable of managing myself." I hung up and returned to reviewing budget allocations for our Q4 campaign launch. 2 weeks later, a formal legal notice arrived through our corporate attorneys, forwarded from my old Chicago office. It was from a law firm representing Ryan Mitchell. The war was escalating to its final desperate front. 6 months later, the turbulence has settled into the steady, satisfying rhythm of a life I'm constructing entirely on my own terms. My apartment is no longer temporary housing, but a home that reflects my actual aesthetic preferences rather than Ryan's vision of professional success. I've hung my architectural photography throughout the space, creating gallery walls that showcase the technical skill and artistic vision that judges have recognized but Ryan never appreciated. I'm not only excelling in my regional role, but have been invited to present our market expansion strategy to the board of directors next quarter. My team has exceeded every performance metric, and our Seattle launch generated more engagement than any previous regional expansion. The freedom to make decisions without filtering them through someone else's agenda has unleashed creativity I didn't realize I was suppressing. Most significantly, I've discovered Seattle's vibrant photography community. The collective I joined meets weekly in a converted warehouse space where we critique each other's work, share technical knowledge, and organize group exhibitions. For the first time in years, I'm surrounded by people who understand the patience required for macro photography, who appreciate the artistic merit in architectural details, who see my work as art rather than decorative time-wasting. The legal battle was the final, predictable chapter in Ryan's attempt to maintain control through intimidation. His attorney's initial letter was a masterpiece of creative fiction. He demanded compensation for emotional distress and wrongful abandonment, claiming I had violated an implied partnership agreement. He sought financial damages for his investment in our shared future, including moving expenses and lost business opportunities. Most absurdly, he demanded half the value of my photography equipment, described as jointly acquired artistic assets developed during the relationship. The irony of him monetizing the hobby he had consistently dismissed as childish was breathtaking, but also revealing. Even in defeat, he was attempting to profit from talents he had never acknowledged. I never responded directly. Our corporate legal department, which provides comprehensive support for executive-level employees, assumed complete control of the situation. Their response was a clinic in professional demolition that addressed every claim systematically. They established that we were never married, had no shared assets, and no legal partnership of any kind. They produced my condo lease agreement, solely in my name since before our relationship began, and my legal termination notice, proving he was legally a long-term guest with no property rights. They documented the storage facility contract, demonstrating that I had carefully preserved his belongings at my own expense rather than disposing of them maliciously. Most importantly, they countered his abandonment claims with my signed promotion acceptance and corporate relocation package, both dated weeks before my departure, proving that my move was a planned professional advancement rather than impulsive relationship sabotage. The final section was a formal harassment complaint that included detailed documentation of his fraudulent emergency call, subsequent stalking behavior through intermediaries, and this frivolous legal action. They stated clearly that any further legal action would result in the company pursuing formal harassment charges and seeking damages for executive time wasted on personal matters. The response was immediate silence. 1 week later, our legal team received a single-sentence email. Mr. Mitchell was withdrawing all claims. I learned about the aftermath through my former colleague Michelle, who reached out 6 months later with updates I hadn't requested but found oddly satisfying. Ryan had been forced to pay substantial legal fees from his own savings. After my prepaid storage period ended, the monthly fees became his responsibility, creating unexpected financial pressure. He eventually had to move his belongings to his parents' suburban garage, a humbling experience for someone who had built his identity around projecting success. Today, I'm working on my most ambitious photography series yet, a collection capturing the structural details of Pacific Northwest bridges. These images require technical precision, artistic vision, and patience, qualities that define both my professional success and personal growth. I don't hate Ryan. I feel distant pity for someone trapped in an image built on diminishing others. By leaving, I didn't just reclaim my lifestyle, I reclaimed my agency and gave myself back to myself. I survived. More than that, I'm building something stronger, more beautiful, and entirely my own.